Okay, now that we've talked a tiny bit about genre and the superhero genre, and you've looked through some of the other lectures I've given you, let's start talking about the Wachowski siblings in general. Who these folks are, what they're doing, what their films have been about, what ideas and topics they tend to approach in their work. It's weird, perhaps, that I'm thinking about the writers of this film, even more than the source material, graphic novel, or the director. The Wachowski siblings seem to have always wanted to kick back against the systems in which they're working. They see that film, while it's a beautiful, amazing medium, has a lot of ideological problems. The way Hollywood works, it gives us fantasies about the world that might really hurt, if not us, certain people in the world. So they're always sort of kicking back against that. And one of the reasons I'm calling them the Wachowski siblings is because both of those individuals would consider themselves transgendered at this point. And throughout the different films, they were originally called the Wachowski brothers. And depending on the film or the television show they were working on, they had different sort of identities and would call themselves differently. So out of respect towards them, I want to make sure that I'm not pigeonholing them in any particular category. Okay. They're probably most famous for the Matrix films that begin in 1999 and move through the early 2000s. If you haven't seen the Matrix, it really was a game changer, not just for how films are made, but how smart certain types of quote-unquote superhero or science fiction films can be. There are some extraordinarily philosophical ideas. And when I say philosophical, I don't just mean intelligent or intellectual. I mean they're reading the history of European philosophy and appropriating certain ideas from very specific philosophers and playing them out. In The Matrix, for example, it was a French theorist named Jean Baudrillard who one of his main ideas. I'm sorry, I won't jump into that. If you're interested, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to babble about Jean Baudrillard, Seal, Malak, and Simulation, and how that works in the Matrix movies. Let's get to V for Vendetta. Here, they create a script that seems to be responding to war, responding to violence, responding to state-sanctioned violence. Some people see this film as kind of like an anti-American movie. Fine, if that's the way you see it, talk about it. If you're mad about that, talk about it. I hope it's clear that I'm not teaching films that I necessarily believe in their messages. I'm teaching films that I hope will sort of force us to talk and force us to figure out what's going on. Some people see V for Vendetta to be a very wildly pro-American film, a certain version of America that they're sort of pushing for. It takes place in Britain, which I think is a way to talk about American issues without pissing people off too much in America, etc. Regarding some of the philosophies they're dealing with, part of what they're thinking about is anarchy and anarchism. A guy named Kropotkin, who basically says, in order for you to be the person you need to be, the person you truly are, you must decode culture from you. So in order to understand yourself, you have to figure out what part of you has been programmed by your culture. And that's something we're going to see a lot in V for Vendetta. I don't want to say too much else about the film. I very much want you, especially post-midterm, to sort of find your own way through this. But I do want to focus on a specific moment in the film, a sequence that I think is wildly important, and just to sort of highlight it for you. And we would call it the Valerie's letter sequence. So about halfway through the movie, one of our main characters is going to be captured and interrogated, and she is a suspected terrorist. So she's going to be interrogated, and while she's in her prison cell, she starts finding a narrative, a story, written on what seems to be toilet paper, to her or someone else in that cell. And what the story sort of depicts is how there was sort of a cultural backlash against certain identities, and how the police, the army, were coming in and sort of really, well, basically illegally taking in people they didn't feel were appropriate or didn't like, torturing them, doing tests on them, etc. A couple things about the sequence. It's another version of Shawshank Redemption. Some people might say it's the lesbian version or the gay version of the Shawshank Redemption, in that we're going to see these relationships play out in a very intimate way. We're going to have a voiceover that seems to be very authoritative and very wise, kind of like the Morgan Freeman voiceover from Shawshank Redemption. And it's going to be about, in a way, going to prison, being imprisoned, and how that sort of works. But of course, it's going to have a very provocative, maybe countercultural spin to it, the way that's going to work. I don't want to talk about the ending of that particular sequence, but please pay attention to it. The voiceover changes. It adds a very strange new dimension that I would love for you guys to focus on. Again, I want you to be open to deal with what you want to deal with in this film. But a small challenge. Maybe you guys can start discussing the Valerie's Letter sequence. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Does it work for you? Does it challenge any of your own ideas? Does it champion ideas that you hope will be championed? I know a lot of people walked out of the theater at that sequence. A lot of people who love superhero movies, a lot of people who love the graphic novel, really got upset by that sequence. Other people really championed the movie for that sequence. And I know I'm being a little vague, but I very much want you to have your point of view and have your ideas and see where they go. I'm going to end this lecture there. Don't want to ruin anything else in the movie for you. Very much looking forward to seeing where you guys go. Please don't forget, as you're writing your essays and discussions, that even though I haven't mentioned any elements of film form by now, they should just be part of your vocabulary. You should always be discussing cinematography, editing, performance, visual design, etc. as you analyze the films. Okay? Looking forward, guys. Talk to you soon.